All right, so hello everyone. My name is Marina, and for this part of the session, I'll be taking you through a demonstration of the Creative Climate tools. So I'll be going through how to create an account, key navigation points, creating different types of reports, and then looking at your results. And this demonstration will be quite in depth, so just want to reiterate that the session is being recorded, and you'll be able to go back and rewatch the recording after if you miss anything. I'll also drop the link to the tools in the chat now, just if anyone wants to follow along as I'm going through it. Just a reminder as well that we will have a Q&A part of the session at the end. So if you could please focus on putting your questions in the Q&A section rather than the chat, just because it's much easier for them to get lost and it's a lot easier for us to reply in the Q&A part. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's get started and start looking at the tools. So for new users that have joined us today, which we know there's quite a lot of new people coming to the tools, the first thing that you'll be looking to do is to set up your organization's account. So this form can be found at our Creative Climate Tools sign-up page, which is what we've just sent in the chat, where you'll need to enter some of the basic information about your organization. So this includes things like your organization name, the country and region that your organization operates in, the size of your organization, and the sector that your organization belongs to. You'll also be asked to select what kind of year you'd like to report against, so whether this is the calendar year or your own financial year. And you'll be asked to select which funding portfolio your organization belongs to. So under this program, you'll all need to select BFI, but if you're also part of other funding portfolios, you're able to select multiple subcategories if needed. And then finally on the form, there's just a little bit of contact information at the bottom. Please note that you're able to make amendments to all of these details if needed once you've created your account. And I'll shortly show you where you can do that. So moving on to the tools, let's begin with some key navigation points. So currently we're on the homepage, which gives you an overall dashboard of the most recent information on your account. On the left-hand side, we have a navigation panel, which allows you to flick between the different pages available on the site. And we'll come back to some of these later on in the demonstration. In the top right-hand corner, you can access your account details via the organization details and the user details pages. So these are the pages where you can amend that information given in the account setup. And then lastly on the menu, we've got a really useful page, which is our resources page, where you can find some really useful documents. I'd recommend checking out any user guides for specific footprints and functions to help you get started. So that's it for navigation for now. Let's start with the first thing an organization would be looking to do, and that is creating a report and starting to enter data into the tools. So this can be done on the data page, which we're sitting on now. And as Danielle mentioned, on the Creative Climate tools, there are 6 different types of footprint reports that you can choose from. And they sit under either building or projects. So under buildings, you can either select an office or a venue and cultural building report. So a venue and cultural building might include a cinema, a multi-art centre, really any kind of public space venue. Whilst an office refers to a more enclosed environment of an office building or a space that you run as an organisation. On the other side, we have our projects, and here you can create different reports related to the activity of your organisation. So there are 4 different reports to choose from here. We've got outdoor events, indoor events, tours, and the option of creating a custom project footprint. In short, this footprint allows you to create your own bespoke report, and we'll actually come back to this one as well later on in the demonstration. In terms of organizational footprints, users are encouraged to create as many or as few of these reports as is relevant to their organization. So we would typically recommend that an organization chooses from a building report, so either an office or venue and cultural building, just for your general day-to-day operations. And then we would recommend complementing this with project footprints, depending on the organization's structure and the field that it sits in. But this is just a recommendation. We recognize that all organizations are different and other combinations of reports might work better for your organization. Okay, so let's have a look at some of our different footprints available. So as an example, I'm actually going to run through how you would set up a venue footprint. So this could be a cinema, an exhibitor, or a multi-arts venue, for example. So you would start by clicking the New Building button, selecting Venue and Cultural Building. Then you just need to enter the name of your building. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to call this Venue C. And then selecting the sector that you most belong to. And then there's the option to also enter some more details if you'd like to. Once you've clicked Save, this will take you through to the data entry part of the account. So as you can see, the reports are set out with various tabs running across the top of the page. And this covers the different impact areas relating to your venue. So we have things like energy use, water, waste, and different types of travel. These tabs will vary depending on the type of report that you've selected, but as a whole, the layout of the reports will look really similar. So the idea is that you work through these tabs and enter the data that is relevant to your organization for the year that you're reporting on. So it might be that you have lots of information readily available, which is fantastic. But on the other hand, it may be that you have a much more limited set of information and you're only able to report on a couple of these different impacts. And that is absolutely fine. We don't expect everyone to be able to fill everything in. The idea is that you report on the data that you have available and then submit at the end. So now I'll briefly show you the information required on each tab. So in terms of the first page, this is just the general tab. The important fields on this page are the reporting year selected and the country that your organization operates in. And these are important because they have an impact on the calculations. So please make sure that these are correct. On this tab, you've also got some basic information that you can enter about your building, like what type of building it is, the floor area, and the employees based there. Another important field to note on this tab is the total known attendance for the year. So as you can see, this field has a reddish color to show that it is a mandatory field. And it is mandatory because it directly influences calculations on another tab. In this case, it influences the calculations on the audience travel tab. So you must make sure that this field is filled in order for the calculations to work. So let's just fill that in. But this is actually a good place to note that not every single field in the report needs to be completed. So some fields may not be relevant to your organization, and some fields you might just not have the data for yet. So when you start out, just focus on your key impacts and make sure that these mandatory fields are filled in. Okay. So let's head on to the first page where you'll be entering data that will start to generate your footprint. And this is the energy use tab. So the main areas for energy data for most buildings will be things like electricity use or mains gas use. And the idea is that you're entering the consumption figures for the period that you're reporting on. So for a building, this would be for the energy consumption over the whole year. So you'd be asking yourself, how much electricity did our main venue use over the last 12 months, and enter it here. So as Danielle mentioned, these figures can be typically found on your basic utility bills or by taking a manual meter reading. There are also a few different options here available related to generators. So we've got options like diesel or biodiesel, particularly for events or some outside spaces as well. A useful tip is that some of these fields have a small red icon, as you can see. And if you hover over these, a black call-out box will appear with some help text. And this includes useful information on the type of data that you're expected to enter and some tips on where you can go to collect it. If we move further down, there is a section for energy consumption related to home working. So this is where organizations can record information about their employees working from home. So this consists of the total number of working hours across the year using home office equipment or using home heating. So you might be able to obtain this information through a staff survey or by making assumptions based on working from home policies your organizations might have. It's important to remember, though, that these figures will be estimates and not to get bogged down in the details for this. Another feature that we have is the ability to enter a custom carbon figure into your report. So for example, you might use other tools to calculate some of your activities like digital impacts, and you'd like to enter this figure into your overall report. Or maybe you have key stakeholders or suppliers that might have provided you with a specific carbon emissions figure related to your consumption or activity. And basically, this field allows you to enter this specific figure directly into your report. And these custom emissions sections are available throughout all of the tabs of all of our reports, which you will see pop up throughout the demo. Lastly, in most tabs, you can also find a notes section, and these sections are useful for keeping track of how you've approached the data entry and keeping this information consistent against reporting years. So we definitely recommend that you use these where possible because it can be really useful when tracking. In terms of footprint navigation, at the bottom of the page, as you can see, there's an option to save and update your results, and also to move on to the next page. We would recommend that you save your data as you go along, as the tools do not have an autosave function, and this will prevent you from losing your data. But before we actually move on to the next tab, I'm just going to demonstrate what will happen once you save your data. So if we look at the top of the page, this footprint currently has 0 emissions. But then if we go and add a bit of data and press save at the bottom of the page, the tool will update and start generating your footprint in the top right-hand corner. And this is a useful way to check that things are saving as you're working through your report. Okay, so moving on to the next tab, which is the water tab. And this is where you can enter the consumption figures for your building over the last 12 months. Water and wastewater data is basic information that should be readily available in your utility bills or via meters if you have metering available in your building. As mentioned previously, as you can see, we've also got the custom emissions as an option and the notes sections available again if you have extra information or data that you would like to add in. Now on to waste. So for those of you who are familiar with the tools, this tab might actually look slightly different because as part of our latest update, we've improved the user journey and methodology around recording waste from your buildings and events. So users are now able to select the composition of the waste that they're disposing of. So there's lots of different options available to choose from. We've got things from food waste to construction waste to packaging and consumables. We also have some generic categories, like mixed materials for general waste, for example, if you're not sure of what your waste composition is. Once you've selected your waste composition, all you need to do is enter the amount of waste that this is, select your units, and then you can also then lastly select the end of life treatment for this waste. So now if we look at the live results, you're able to view your emissions data split between the generation emissions and the waste treatment emissions. So just to explain a little bit about what that is, your generation emissions that are shown at the top, this covers the emissions from the production, the manufacturing, transport, storage, and the direct use of the materials. And the treatment covers the emissions from the end of life treatment of the waste, essentially. So that's just to cover that part, and that's useful to see the breakdown, and that's something that we've added in our recent update. And this type of data, the waste data, is likely to come from your waste contractor. However, for organizations who don't have their tonnage data available, we've also developed a waste tonnage estimator, which you can find at our resources page. And this is essentially a really simple spreadsheet calculator, which estimates the weight of your waste based off of how many bins are collected per week or per month in your organization. As a lot of improvements have been made to this page, some of you who have used the tools before might notice some changes to the way that your emissions are reported compared to previous years. And we've worked really closely on the development of this project with a leading waste expert to ensure that the methodology and the factors which are used in the tools are the most appropriate. So that's it for waste. Let's move on to our next tab, which is the audience travel tab. And this is where you can capture the emissions related to your audience's travel choices. So to collect this information, we would recommend conducting an audience travel survey. And this can be done at the point of sale or at the box office on ticket collection, or you could even send out a questionnaire to your members to find out typically how they would travel to your venue. So on this page, as you can see, we have a list of different travel types that are listed down here. And what you would do is you would enter the percentage of your audience that are traveling by a certain method. So for example, if you've done a survey, you might know that 80% of your audience has traveled to and from your venue by car, and the rest might have traveled by train. Then you'll also need to enter the average return distance that your audience members have traveled to get to and from your venue. So let's just, oh, 480. Let's just enter some information here. And then also for cars, we also ask about carpooling information. So this is about the average number of people traveling in the cars. Now, if we go down and save our results, there we go, this goes through. So as mentioned at the start of this report, you just need to make sure that that mandatory field on the general tab about attendance is also filled out so that the tools can calculate your audience travel emissions. Otherwise, this section will not work. And for anyone who's not actually able to obtain audience travel information, there is a default option here at the top. So if you select this box, the tools can roughly estimate the size of your audience travel impacts based on some research that Julie's Bicycle conducted a few years ago. So all you have to do is click this box and make sure that the total known attendance field is filled out on the general tab for this to work. Okay, so moving on to business travel. So business travel refers to any non-commuter work-related travel that is connected to your job. So if you have team members traveling for events, conferences, trainings, this data can all be recorded here. And this sort of information should be readily available on record or can usually be obtained from your travel partner. So flights can be added using this add flight button here, and then you can select either when the widget pops up, yeah, there we go. You can either select the manual or the automatic options, depending on whether you've got your mileage figures readily available or not. For other types of travel, you can select the mode of transport using the travel type and vehicle type drop-downs. And then depending on the mode of transport that you've selected, different options will be available in the measured by fields. So for example, your travel emissions can be calculated for a range of things like the miles traveled or the fuel used on your journey or the electricity used by your electric vehicles. So we've got a range of different things that you can use there. Lastly, on the business travel tab, we've got the accommodation section. And here, users are able to calculate these emissions by simply entering the number of nights per room spent in the hotel accommodation. So for collecting this type of data, we've introduced a business travel data collection template, which is available to download from our resources page. So I'll just quickly show you this spreadsheet. And this is essentially a spreadsheet that can be used offline. And it's been designed to help users gather their information regarding their staff's travel using the different tabs available at the bottom. And then what the spreadsheet does is it essentially gathers all of this information and it combines it and summarizes it into this page here and makes it essentially minimizes the amount of information that you then have to enter into the Creative Climate tools online. More information on how to use this can be found on the instructions page. So yeah, would recommend downloading that from our resources page. So that's it for business travel. Let's move on to fleet. And this is laid out in a really similar format to the business travel tab. The main distinction here is that fleet travel refers to any vehicles that are owned and operated by your organization, such as cars, vans, minibuses, etc. So again, here you can choose the mode of transport using the travel type and the vehicle type drop-downs. And for most vehicles, there will be the option to enter the distance traveled for the journey or the amount of fuel used by the vehicle. So yeah, works in a really similar way to the business travel tab. So we've come to the end of this report, and the final page is the submission page. So when working through reports, you can save your data and come back to it at a later stage. And this is absolutely fine. We don't expect organizations to necessarily fill everything out in one go. However, once you're happy with the data that you've entered, there is a Submit Footprint button here. And pressing this button will send a notification to Julie's Bicycle to inform us that the data has been submitted. And this will also send all of the data from your report over to the results pages. So just to emphasize that last point, if you want your data to go through and appear in the results pages, you will need to submit your report. And this doesn't mean you can't amend your report once it's been submitted. You can always go back to the report at a later date if needed. If you choose not to submit your report, please just make sure that you've clicked that Save and Continue Later button that's just here. Another thing to take note of on this page is the missing values section here. So any fields that appear in the color red in this section mean that a mandatory field has not been filled out and therefore has affected your emissions calculations. By clicking on the field here, this will take you straight to the place in the report where the empty field is. But as you can see, this field is shown in black, which means we have no missing values for this report. So we're good to go in that aspect. Okay, so that's it for the venue and cultural building report. If we circle back to the original data page where we created our report, underneath Edit an Incomplete Footprint section, we can find the report that we were working on, so it was venue C, and continue adding data by just clicking that Edit button. Any reports that sit in this incomplete section are reports that have not yet been submitted, so they won't appear in the results section. But you can continue to work on these reports. The easiest way to look at all of the data available in your account, so that's including submitted and incomplete reports, is by going to this footprint tab up here. And then as described, you can view your footprints by buildings, by different projects, or you can view them by year. And this is just a good place to remind users that some organizations might have multiple footprint reports. You might have multiple buildings, multiple projects, whilst others might just have one. So just use as many or as little as you want and just do what works best for your organization. So if we just go through what we've just seen, we've just looked at the venue and cultural building footprint. In terms of the other footprint reports available, we've got the office, outdoor event, and indoor event, which are largely similar to the footprint that I've just shown you in terms of the tabs and the information required. So just looking at the tabs now, as you can see, Office has very similar, actually the same tabs, apart from one, as venue and cultural building, and similarly with outdoor and indoor events. So for the sake of time and to avoid repetition, I won't be going through these reports in this demonstration today. However, I will show you the two other reports that we've got available, which look slightly different. And these are our tour footprint and the custom project footprint. As I've gone through a lot of information, and this might be a bit of information overload for now, I think this is a good place for us to take a break, and then we can go through these footprints when we come back. And then I will also show you how to look at your results on the Creative Climate tools. So yeah, I think this is a good place to take a break. Danielle, do you have a preference of how long we take a break for and when we should tell people to come back?
10 to 12, let's say 10 minutes. So we'll come back 9-10 minutes. We'll come back about midday.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so now let's have a look at the tour footprint. So this footprint can be used to capture emissions from a tour, whether that's a screening tour or a cinema festival tour, for example. So primarily this footprint report looks at the power from the screenings and the travel involved from moving as part of a tour. So again, we have that similar layout with the tabs running across the top of the page. However, the tabs themselves are slightly different, as you can see. So starting with the general tab, so this just asks for some basic information about the tour, like when the tour was running and where, etc. Then the next tab that we've got is the performances tab, or in this case, it's more referring to screenings. And essentially, this tab calculates an estimate of the energy emissions associated with the film screenings. And this is done by multiplying the average power per screening by the number of outdoor and indoor screenings, respectively, as you can see. So you should be able to obtain your average power per screening by asking your venues to check their meters for the estimated energy consumption before and after your screening. So this is a way that you might be able to do this. And just a reminder that this really will just show you an estimate of what your energy consumption impact is with your screenings across the tour. It won't be something extremely accurate, but it's just to have a look at the size of this impact compared to your other impacts. And then we've got the audience travel tab. So this works in the exact same way as the one that we showed in the venue and cultural building footprint. So I won't go through this one again. And then we've got the artist and crew travel tab. So this tab basically allows users to record information regarding the individuals traveling as part of the tour. So this could be filmmakers, talent, writers, or directors traveling to and from the tour events. And this information should be available via your travel agent or through internal records. And similarly to the other travel tabs, you've got the ability to enter data in terms of distance traveled, total fuel used, or total electricity used for the journeys. All of the modes of transports are listed out at the side, as you can see. We've got all of these available. And then at the bottom of the page, we've got the accommodation section. So this works in the exact same way as the one found on the business travel tab shown earlier. All you have to do is enter the number of nights spent in hotel accommodation to determine your emissions. And this sort of information should be available via your travel agent or internally through your accommodation managers, for example. Please note that currently these accommodation sections only allow users to enter hotel accommodation data. However, if you find that you've rented out a full property for your team to stay in, we would recommend assuming that this has a similar carbon footprint per night, per room as a hotel. So that's it for artists and crew travel. In this footprint, we've also got a materials tab and a freight tab. However, I won't be going through these tabs in this session as they are likely not to be relevant to screening tours. However, if you are interested in finding out more about these tabs, we have a longer demonstration available on our resources page, as well as user guides which can give you more information about these. This is a good place to re-emphasize that not all organizations will need to fill in all of the tabs. You only need to fill out the tabs relating to the activity of your organization. So we would recommend focusing on those main impact areas for you on a screening tour, which are likely to be the performances or screenings, the energy from those, the audience travel, and your artists and crew travel. And that's the top 3 that we'd recommend. But obviously you can have a look at different things too, if these are also great impacts for you. Okay, so that's it for the tour footprint. The other report that I'm going to show you quickly in this demonstration is our custom project footprint report. And this can be easily set up in the same way as the other reports. So going back to the data page, and then if we go down to the new project button and select custom project, as you can see, there's the same information to fill out as there is for the regular footprints. But at the bottom, we've also got an extra section where users can select which impacts they would like to measure in their footprint. So an organization may want to use this because their project or activity does not quite fit into one of the 5 set footprints, and they would like to report on a particular set of impacts. So, for example, let's take an indoor film festival. In this case, you would likely report on impacts such as your energy use, your water consumption, your team's business travel, the audience travel to and from your indoor film festival, and maybe also the waste coming from this event. And then if we press save, this will generate a report with these tabs, just like so. And this works exactly like the other reports, with a general tab for the basic information about your project at the beginning, and then you work through the different data entry tabs. There is no difference in the information requested in the impact tabs. The only real difference is that you can choose which tabs will appear in the footprint. If you find that you have not selected the right tabs, you can actually edit these tabs by going back to the footprint record. So if we go back to the data page and find that footprint record, we go to projects. This is the report we were working on, the Indoor Film Festival A. And then if you go to the end of the footprint record, there's this little pencil icon. If you click on that, you're able to edit and amend the footprint record accordingly. So you can just click to select different tabs where appropriate. So that's it for the custom project footprint. Overall, this has hopefully given you an idea of the information available in our different creative climate tools footprints. So once you've gone through the process of entering and submitting your footprint data, The tools will then generate the information in the results section. So let's have a look at this. This is where you can really interrogate the data that you've provided. Doing your carbon footprint is obviously a really important first step in your sustainability journey, but the value really comes from analysing your data and making informed decisions based off of what you've discovered. In the results section, we've got a couple of different subpages that will help you do this. So on the first page, and this is the summary page, you can see a summary of all of the data in your account for specific years. There's also a pie chart here, which has the overall split of emissions into the different impact areas for the year selected. This is a great way to be able to look at the bigger picture and identify which are your biggest contributors and zoom in to see which activities within these impacts hold the largest emissions, as you can see. When you scroll down, you can also see this information broken down into table form. And on these pages, there's also the opportunity to download pie charts, graphs, tables of data using the various buttons around the page. Moving on to the Compare tab. So this page allows you to compare your results from year to year. This is a great place to visualize and interrogate your emissions reductions and/or increases from one year to another. On the right-hand side, you can choose to compare all of your reports, or you might look at an individual building or project. And when you're looking at an individual report, you can also show your results by the total values or by various different metrics that we've got available. If this is your first year of reporting, you'll only be able to see 1 year of data, but the more you use the tool, the more this section will become useful. And lastly, we've got the details page, and this summarizes the data entered for an individual footprint report. And this page is split again into those key impact areas, as you can see as we scroll down. So it's also really useful for interrogating the data at a more granular level. You can use the drop downs at the side to toggle this by report or by year. And you can also use this page to download the individual report data using the buttons at the side. So this largely covers the main areas of the results section. Now let's have a look at some of the other features in the left-hand navigation panel, starting with the Beyond Carbon survey. So this is a survey that organisations can fill out, which captures the qualitative information beyond the basic carbon numbers in terms of what you do around sustainability. This survey is divided into 3 parts and mainly consists of multiple or single answer questions on a range of topics, from policy to engagement, from resilience to energy, and much more. Part 1 also includes an opportunity for users to use the text box to describe their environmental achievements over the last reporting year. Once you've completed all of the questions and that you've answered them, all you need to do is just submit the report via the submission page, just like you would for a regular footprint report. And you only need to fill this out once per reporting year. We would recommend that organisations use the Beyond Carbon survey as a prompt for further understanding of your environmental impacts and maybe as well as a checklist of best practice. If your organisation is struggling to get the quantitative information needed for the calculations, this survey is especially useful in painting a picture of your actions beyond the numbers. So that's it for Beyond Carbon. The last page I would like to show you today in this demonstration is the links page. And this page is a hub for users to be able to easily access Julie's Bicycle's resources and external resources to help you with collecting your data, completing your reports, and also taking action. Using the drop-down options at the top of the page, you can view resources relevant to your cultural sector, or a particular section in the Creative Climate Tools, or maybe by specific impact area. The resources includes things like useful links, guides, and case studies. So it's definitely worth having a look through if you get stuck or if you're just looking for ideas. So we've now come to the end of the demonstration. For more information specifically regarding the Creative Climate Tools, we would recommend that you check out those guidance documents on the resources page or on the Julie's Bicycle website. You're also welcome to contact us directly via our help desk. Thank you.